assignment for Module 8. So first I'm going to start off with the public key infrastructure helpers file that I copied over from the documentation that was in the lab manual. I'm not sure if it's gone too depth into this, but I'll just go over it real quick. So this is the function that generates a private key using RSA. This part sets up the encryption algorithm that will be used on the private key. And then this code block writes the private key to the disk at the specified file name, and it also uses the password provided that's passed to the function. This is the function for generating a public key. And here we're building up the information about the subject of the certificate, including the country, state, locality, organization, host name, which I'll show later where that gets filled in. This line is because the certificate we're making is self-signed, so the issue is always the subject. This makes sure that the certificate is valid from now until 30 days from now. And then we're going to use this builder to build the certificate with all the information we have, like the subject and the issuer, which is just ourselves, and the public key, and then I'm not sure what the serial number is, but and then we also have the valid from and before. Here we're setting the certificate with the private key that we generated in, I'll show that later too. And then we write the public key to the file name that we specify. This function is for generating a certificate signing request or a CSR so that the server can become trusted. This kind of, I think, does a similar thing where it's filling out a X509 object with the information that we pass to it. This generates any alternate DNS names. Oops. And here we're building another builder object for the requirement attributes for CSR, which include the subject name and whatever this extension is. Then we sign the CSR with a private key, which I'll show later is you make a private key to go along with the CSR. And then we write that CSR to the to the disk in a PEM format. And then this function will assign the CSR with the keys that we pass to it. And then the file name where we want to store it. It is valid from now until 30 days from now. And then again, we're building the certificate. The subject name is based on the CSR. The issuer is based on the CA, since that's who issued the certificate. And then we get the public key from the CSR. Down here, according to that documentation, we copy any extensions that were set on the CSR here. And then we're signing the public key with the CA's private key. And then that also writes does a similar thing in the other functions where it's writing the PEM to the disk at the file name specified. And then next, it kind of seemed like in the documentation you could just run this in some sort of command line. Sorry, it's 2:30. I don't have words, but I decided to just keep it in a file just for my sanity, and also like sometimes I'd make adjustments, so it would just be helpful to keep them all in here. Let's see. So these are all the everything we need to import for the functions down here to work. So we're importing the functions that were in PKI helpers, and then we're going to use it down here. So first, we're going to generate the private and public key pair. When we generate the private key, we specify what we want to name it and the password for it. And then we're also going to generate the public key down here with all those attributes that we talked about earlier. Then we're going to generate a private key for this ESR. So we do that the same way as above. We just call the same function, generate private key. We give it a name and we give it a password. And then down here, we're going to actually make that CSR with the similar attributes using the server private key that we just made. And then we are loading the CSR, so we're opening up the PEM file that we just made. We're also loading the certificate authorities public key. So our public key that we made earlier, we're opening that, and then we're loading the CA as a private key, which we also made above, and we're opening it up. Let me see. And finally, we sign the CSR down here. Okay, and then I'll move on to the server code. So like how in the assignment said, this is pretty much the same as the assignment module 7, especially down here with, it's taking a while to scroll, with HTTP handle. Pretty much all that is the same from last time. The changes we made are up here in the main function. So I made sure that we import, well, I think we already had socket import, but make sure we have SSL imported. The things that are different is that we are creating a context here. So here we're creating a new SSL context with the transport layer security protocol. So that's what the sign means. In this line, we are loading the certification chain, and we're doing that by loading the private key, the corresponding certificate here, and then the password that we need to actually use the private key and the certificate. And then just as a side note, I was facing an issue like someone else did in the chat where I was getting an Erno 9 error. And I found that if I moved this part, or no, sorry, it was this part. If I moved that inside of this loop, that seemed to fix it, because it seemed to break because every time I was closing it, and then I would try to use a socket that I just closed. So it looks like moving this inside the while true loop fixed that. So this is the same as last time. What we changed in here is on line 42, where we're wrapping that socket that we were using originally, so that we are wrapping it with the SSL context that we defined up here and also here. And then, yeah, pretty much everything below that is the same. So the only thing we're doing differently is that we're wrapping it with the transport layer security protocol, so that clients can make sure that this server is trusted because of our CA. So let me see what else I can show. Oh. Okay. So now this web client code was pretty much provided. The only thing I had to change was this. Yeah, this part of the response where we had to verify the server with the public key that we know about. So that is the only thing that we had to change here. So now I'll go ahead and give a demo of it. Let me open up the command line. So I just have to redo that. Looks like I accidentally deleted that server ready message. So that's good. Let me switch over here. And then we'll go ahead and run the client code. All right, there we go. It finally loaded. So when we run the client code, it's just asking our server for the secret message, which is just the response that it would usually give with a good properly formatted GET request. So what we got was HTML code here. I don't know, I was just talking about a plan I got last week. Kind of reset my room. So, all right, so it looks like Wireshark finally decided to open. So I go ahead and, oh, looks like it's already recording. I'll go ahead and bring up the command line again. So I brought my command line back up, so I'll go ahead and run the server again and run the client again. And let's see what happened over here. All right, I'll go ahead and pause. All right, so you see here when we go back to Wireshark that there is there's some TCP exchanges, but there's also TLS, or the Transport Layer Security Protocol that you can see here. This one in particular is in the handshake protocol. That's the client saying hello. This is the server saying hello. Everything like that. You can see more of them down here. So basically, the server had a CA, which was me, make a certificate, and got that signed by the CSR to make sure that we as a server can be trusted by the client. So the client can take a look at that certificate that was sent to them to make sure that the server is legit and that we should be able to accept what they send us and not worry about that. On that same thread, like when I did not have my code set up properly and I tried to do a request from the client to get the secret message from the server, it did say something like, oh, the server might not be trusted, blah blah blah. But once I set up the CSR, which I hadn't yet, then the client figured out like, oh, I can actually trust this server because of this certificate that the CA issued and that the CSR signed. So that was pretty cool to see. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, so yeah, thanks for listening. Have a great week.